see from Jakari Brown, who ended up getting, I'm sure, more work than you guys expected?
He was tough, played tough. The moment wasn't too big for Jakari. I thought he obviously did some really good things in the game, and obviously tough point to go into the game, obviously after adversity hits, and obviously Tyler goes down, but he responded. He's such a positive kid. He wants more and more on his plate. And we've got to continue to find ways, because you do see the value that he does bring us out there, especially using his traits that he's given with.
It's been kind of a tough go at times for Jake. What would you like to see from him for the next few weeks to bounce back?
Yeah, Jake. Jake's had some good moments, some tough moments, and obviously, for us, it's about reinstilling that confidence back in himself. It's like a batter, right? You go on a string of strikeouts or whatever. You just got to get back in rhythm. You got to get back your confidence, get back in rhythm, and that's the thing we got to remind Jake. And got tremendous confidence in him, and unfortunately some things haven't gone his way, but we got to respond. We got to respond as an overall team. That's everyone involved. That's including myself, and so we look forward to doing that as we continue to move forward.
Josh, I know you guys are hoping Tyler's healthy enough to play on Saturday, but if he's not, what do you want to see from Jake and Jakari this week as they prepare for this game to determine who will start on Saturday?
I think just overall as an offense, we just got to be resilient, and that's overall collectively as a group, regardless of what quarterback is in. We can't have highs and lows depending on who's the quarterback, and I think we've been affected a little bit by that. I don't think we've been that type of team that has responded from adversity. And so either quarterback, obviously we're going to prepare both quarterbacks as we always do each and every week. But we've got to have everyone around them have the utmost confidence in them, as well as our quarterbacks have the utmost confidence in everyone around them.
Is there anything in particular you want to see from them just in practice?
Just continue to take the next step forward, focus on what we have presently. Obviously, tough loss. There's no way around it, right? That's not the expectations or the standard that we set. But we've got to move on, and we got to move on fast. We can't allow that loss to linger into this week's preparation. We're playing a really good team in Georgia Tech, and we've got to pour all our focus and effort into finding a way to win a game this week.
Coach, the offensive struggles of going 3 games without a touchdown. Have you ever been through anything like that at all in your career, and how tough is it, and how do you remedy it?
No, not at all. I think it's been 9 quarters, exactly right, without a touchdown, and a lot of that time is there without Tyler, and we've got to be able to respond. And so we've had some close calls to touchdowns, to say the least, right? And then something happens in a sequence where we're down in the red zone, and we've kind of been in a funk. I don't think there's I can't hide from that, and I take that, and I've got to do a better job preparing these guys to respond to adversity. We've got to develop tough mindsets, tough kids, tough coaches, and that starts with us. It's got to show in great leadership. These kids have got to follow us as coaches and take on our mentality, and we've got to continue to push that and continue to push them over the hump. But it has not been pleasant lately, and we've got to score points, ultimately. When we score points, our team plays good. It drives the energy, it drives the emotions of the team, especially when your defense is on the field and they're seeing your offense go score, and we've got to do that. We've got to find ways to score touchdowns.
Josh, it's obviously not easy to get a team ready when you've got 3 different guys who could potentially be the quarterback. Is there a cutoff point in your mind with coach and everything where you guys decide, okay, hey, it's Tuesday, it's Wednesday, we got to know who the guy is so that we can get the team to run this kind of offense?
Well, there is a challenge. Unfortunately, the challenge is kind of there because of injuries, and so it's almost you never know until the last moment. I think we didn't find out about Tyler last week until literally probably about the day before the game, and so you can imagine what you're having to go through from a preparation standpoint of what's good for each player. But ultimately, whatever we ask, we're going to prepare all 3 of the quarterbacks. Or try to prepare them right now, obviously, as we're going through injuries and adversity. And I think also you're seeing the same thing up front. We're down to, 6 or 7 maybe healthy, offensive linemen. And so we're having to rotate different guys in for the what if this guy goes down, who bumps over here, who bumps over there. And so we've got some challenges, as we've had all year long. We've got to continue to just find solutions and answers. And while we do that, we've got to continue to instill confidence in our players. But it has been a challenge.
How did Lawrence Seymour do?
Lawrence stepped in, and obviously, he had some good moments. He had some moments, obviously, where he continued to learn from. He's a young player. You look in the interior right now. We've got 2 freshmen starting for us on the interior offensive line, and not a lot of experience from there, and guys are getting thrust into roles on the job, in the game, not necessarily in the week leading up to preparation. And so everyone's just got to prepare right now. Like I said, we're down to very few options left, and everyone has to assume that they're ready to contribute in any kind of way when the opportunity comes.
Hey Josh, Jake's obviously been turning the ball over at as insane of a rate as you'll ever see in football. Had you guys ever seen that before on the practice field? And where's the disconnect coming from? And why do you think that's happened?
I wish I had an answer because I'd be ready to solve it. But the turnovers collectively as a unit just coming freakishly in games, and it's we're having a lot of things happen in games that don't necessarily show themselves in practice, and I don't know if it's a performance anxiety type situation where our kids are going into games and the moment is catching up to them, but we've got to protect the football. I don't care if it's a quarterback throwing an interception. I don't care if it's a fumble, a missed snap in the red zone. Right? We can't have the things that have been haunting us all season long, and these things are they're issues because they've continued to show up, and they're things that obviously we've addressed, things that we have put as major concern, but ultimately we have to correct them. We can't keep allowing these things to happen in games.
So like that hadn't shown up in practice all through the spring and fall, and it's just now suddenly in the games. It's
just in the games, and there's a lot going on in the quarterback position, right? You got new linemen, you got new people all around you. You're going into the game, and unfortunately, we've made some tough turnovers there. And like I told Jake, like I told him this morning, I continue to believe in him. I've got to instill confidence in him. He's a young man that's had some bright moments. He's still a very young player, and that's the thing that everyone must understand. Young players do make mistakes at times. We've got to continue to grow and develop him and coach him so he can go out there and play confidently.
With the missed snap in the red zone, where was that breakdown on that play?
Well, you know what? So that's it's a tricky deal to deal with, and not to blame anyone, but obviously when there's communication happening on defense, there was defensive players obviously clapping, communicating. A lot of that comes in today's age where everyone is on somewhat of a clap cadence offensively. Defensive players are also using that to get their defenders over. If you saw the communication happening at the time, one of their defensive players was trying to get another player over to another side. It started clapping, and then the ball was snapped. And so it's a tough job on the center to hear where that clap comes from. Obviously, it's something that officials have tried to keep an eye on as far as rules enforcement. But those things happen in the game. We can't sit there and point the finger and point the blame, say it's a missed call. Those things happen. We just can't allow them to happen negatively for us.
How do you keep the team kind of bought into like the offensive strategy and the plan when things haven't been going so well the last couple of weeks?
Well, we gotta develop tough kids, man. And here's the deal: the buy-in within our whole program hasn't gone necessarily the way we want it. But for us, it's about first and foremost, it's about developing the culture in the locker room and in the team that we're going to compete no matter who the opponent is for 60 minutes each and every week. And for those that that don't understand that, there's we've got to come to grips that there's other opportunities out there, and we've got to do a great job in recruiting. I think first and foremost, when you look at it, right, it all starts in building your roster from a recruitment standpoint. You got to recruit the right type of kids, the right type of players, and the right type of mindset. When you talk about developing a culture, it starts there. Obviously, then there's player development and retaining. And so, we've got to challenge our kids, but at the same time, we've got to buy into the culture that we want to establish here. And, everyone has to be on board in that culture. And that's what it takes to build a program. We're obviously in the building process, and no one likes to go through the hard times of building. Everyone wants to show up once it's built, and then obviously, take credit or be a part of something that's already built. But this is no different than any other issues that we've been through in the past with other programs as far as building programs. It's going to take tough work. It's going to take tremendous effort by everyone involved in the program, and ultimately leading us all in the right direction.
Coach, Will Mallory came into the game as your leading receiver, just wasn't targeted. Was there something they were doing? Obviously, tight end's big in your offense. Yeah,
we're trying to get Will late into the red zone on a target for a touchdown. Unfortunately, we got beat on the block on the perimeter, or he would have had an easy opportunity of a walk-in touchdown. It was unfortunate because Will's a big piece of our offense, and we want to find creative ways to get him the ball. I think the game flow within the game kind of caught up to us. We wanted to target him early on. He was getting a couple double coverages and bracketed into the boundary. And we just didn't have that opportunity once things started kind of unraveling within the game. And so we've got to continue to focus on trying to allow, our best players to touch the ball, and Will's one of those guys, and we've got to find ways to get him the ball.
Coach, you decided to stay on the field again for 2 weeks in a row. Kind of what went into that decision? How are you feeling about it, and what should we expect going forward?
Personally, thinking it was going to make a difference, and it obviously didn't. But it was really just to be there as a voice of confidence for our players. When adversity strikes, being able to look them in the eye, being able to get them to respond. Like I said, we have a very inexperienced and I would say a group that hasn't responded to adversity throughout the year. And so for me, the decision of going down on the field was to be that voice that could rally the troops, that could rally everyone if things started going bad. And unfortunately, we still haven't been able to respond in those situations. And so, as we continue to evaluate those things, obviously I'll make an evaluation this week as whether or not I'll be on the field or in the booth. But ultimately, we've got to develop that mindset and mentality that we've got to continue to fight. And it takes everyone's effort, and it takes selflessness. And that's the thing I think probably the most that we've got to continue to push on our team. It takes unselfish players. And we've got to have a group of men that care more about winning for Miami than they do about their own individual recognition of plays or whatever it may be. And ultimately, when we get to that point, we'll have the culture and the team that we want.
Coach, what is Jakari's understanding of your playbook and the offensive system at this point in his freshman season?
Jakari understands everything from an offensive standpoint. I think his skill set is different. I think ultimately as a coach, you got to shape everything around someone's strengths, obviously, and their weaknesses. And when you look at Jakari, he obviously provides us a great strength and skill set in certain areas where we like to focus with him on. But he does a great job understanding conceptually. Obviously, as I've said before, he trains completely as a quarterback, goes to practice as a quarterback, and it was actually really good to see him, with a good deep ball opportunity early on in the game to kind of push the ball down the field, and that's an area obviously where he excels probably a little bit further in the passing game, is being able to throw the ball deep. But those are other areas that we're going to continue to grow on, continue to truly develop him in every aspect of his game.
Last question for Coach Gattis.
What have you seen just overall from Georgia Tech's defense?
High pressure team. They blitz about 52% of the time. It doesn't matter what personnel, and very aggressive. Obviously, they're a team that's playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They've been through adversity, obviously, with the head coaching change throughout the year, and they're playing aggressive. This last stretch, you've seen them play well at times. You've also seen them obviously have adversity and not play up to their standard. And so for us, it's about us. We've got to clean up. We've got a lot of things we've got to clean up ourselves, and a lot of things that we have to focus on ourselves. But we understand, we're going on the road. We're playing in front of I think it's a whiteout crowd for them. It's going to be a great atmosphere out of their fans. And we've got to be able to accept the adversity that happens with the crowd noise and environment, and we've got to play through it.
How do you prepare? Jakari's obviously a young quarterback. You're potentially making his first start. If that's what you guys intend to do. Jake's had some issues this year. He's also a young guy. How do you prepare him for a team that blitzes that much?
Well, we've got to just first and foremost, we got to find ways to keep the quarterback protected. And that starts in our protection pickup, communication, running backs, offensive line, game plan, being able to identify areas where strengths for us, where's our matchup issues. We're also starting some new offensive linemen. So that's a big factor in it all. What can we put on their plate as well? And I think ultimately when you're going into a game plan, you're trying to figure out how much can everyone handle. There's a lot of different pieces. I think the one area where we don't have as many moving parts right now is back at the receiver position. But that position is obviously affected a little bit about everything else that's going around it. And so we've got to continue to just find ways to maximize what each and every one of our players can do. But that's not individual players. That's collectively as a group that takes the O-line, tight ends, receivers, running backs, and figuring out what they can handle and what they can do best.
All right, Coach.